Welcome to Intentions of a Mastermind Book Club. We are reading Psycho-Cybernetics, the Deluxe Edition by Maxwell Maltz. We have made it all the way to Chapter 10 today, which is how to remove emotional scars or how to give yourself an emotional facelift. We're all the way on page 167. We're in here with the Mastermind members, and if you guys have any questions at any time, please leave them in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Alright, so for today's reading, it says, when you receive a physical injury, such as a cut on the face, your body forms scar tissue, which is both tougher and thicker than the original flesh. The purpose of the scar tissue is to form a protective cover or shell, nature's way of ensuring against another injury in the same place. If an ill-fitting shoe rubs against a sensitive part of your foot, the first result is pain and sensitiveness. But again, nature protects against further pain and injury by forming a callus, a protective shell. We are inclined to do very much the same thing whenever we receive an emotional injury. When someone hurts us or rubs us the wrong way, we form emotional or spiritual scars for self-protection. We are very apt to becoming hardened of heart, callous towards the world, and to withdraw within a protective shell. When nature needs an assist in forming scar tissue, it is nature's intention to be helpful. In our modern society, however, scar tissue, especially on the face, can work against us instead of for us. Take George T., for example, a promising young attorney. He was affable, personable, and well on his way to a successful career, when he had an automobile accident which left him with a horrible scar from midway on his left cheek to the left corner of his mouth. Another cut just over his right eye pulled his upper eyelid tightly when it healed, which gave him a grotesque, glaring appearance. Every time he looked in the bathroom mirror, he saw a repulsive image. The scar on his cheek gave him a perpetual leer, or what he called an evil look. After leaving the hospital, he lost his first case in court, and was sure that his evil and grotesque appearance had influenced the jury. He felt that old friends were repelled and repulsed by his appearance. Was it only his imagination that even his own wife flinched slightly when he kissed her? George T. began to turn down cases. He started drinking during the day. He became irritable, hostile, and something of a recluse. The scar tissue on his face formed a tough protection against future automobile accidents. But the society in which George lived, physical injuries to his face were not the primary hazard. He was more vulnerable than ever to social cuts, injuries, and hurts. His scars were a liability instead of an asset. Had George been a primitive man and suffered facial scars from an encounter with a bear or saber-toothed tigers, his scars would have probably made him more acceptable to his fellows. Even in fairly recent times, old soldiers have proudly displayed their scars of battle. And today, in the outlawed dueling societies in Germany, a saber scar is a mark of a distinction. In George's case, nature had good intentions, but nature needed an assist. I gave George back his old face by plastic surgery, which removed the scar tissue and restored his features. Following surgery, the personality change in him was remarkable. He became his good-natured, self-confident self again. He stopped drinking. He gave up his lone wolf attitude, moved back into society, and became a member of the human race again. He literally found a new life. This new life, however, was brought about only indirectly by plastic surgery on physical tissue. The real curve curative agent was the removal of the emotional scars, the security against social cuts, the healing of emotional scars and injuries, and the restoration of his self-image as an acceptable member of society, which in his case, surgery, made possible. How emotional scars alienate you from life. Many people have inner emotional scars who have never suffered physical injuries, and the result on personality is the same. These people have been hurt or injured by someone in the past. To guard against future injury from that source, they form a spiritual callus, an emotional scar to protect their ego. The scar tissue, however, not only protects them from the individual who originally hurt them, it protects them against all other human beings. An emotional wall is built through which neither friend nor foe can pass. A woman who has been hurt by one man takes a vow to never trust any man again. A child who had his ego sliced up by a despotic and cruel parent or teacher may take a vow never to trust any authority in the future. A man who has his love rejected by one woman may take a vow to never become emotionally involved with any human being in the future. As in the case of a facial scar, exclusive protection against the original source of injury can make us more vulnerable and do us even more damage than in other areas. The emotional wall that we build as protection against one person cuts us off from all other human beings and from our real selves. As we have pointed out previously, the person who feels lonely or out of touch with other human beings also feels out of touch with his real self and with life. Emotional scars help make juvenile delinquents. Psychiatrist Bernard Holland has pointed out that although juvenile delinquents appear to be very independent and have the reputation of being brats, particularly about how they hate everyone in authority, they protest too much. Underneath this hard exterior shell, says Dr. Holland, is a soft, vulnerable inner person who wants to be dependent upon others. However, they cannot get close to anyone because they will not trust anyone. Sometime in the past, they were hurt by a person important to them, and they dare not leave themselves open to hurt again. They always have their defenses up. To prevent further rejection and pain, they attack first. Thus, they drive away the very people who would love them, if given half a chance and could help them. Emotional scars create a marred and ugly self-image. Emotional scars to our ego also have another adverse effect. They lead to the development of a scarred, marred self-image. The picture of a person not liked or accepted by other human beings. The picture of a person who can't get along well in the world of people in which he lives. Emotional scars prevent you from creative living or being what Dr. Arthur W.B. Combs called a self-fulfilled person. Dr. Combs, professor of educational psychology and counseling at the University of Florida, says that the goal of every human being should be to become a self-fulfilled person. This, he says, is not something you're born with, but must be achieved. Self-fulfilled persons have the following characteristics. Number 1, they see themselves as liked, wanted, acceptable, and able individuals. Number 2, they have a high degree of acceptance of themselves as they are. Number 3, they have a feeling of oneness with others. Number 4, they have a rich store of information and knowledge. The person with emotional scars not only has a self-image of unwanted, unliked, and incapable person, but he also has an image of the world in which he lives as a hostile place. His primary relationship with the world is one of hostility. and his dealings with other people are not based upon giving and accepting, cooperating, working with, enjoying with, but upon concepts of overcoming, combating, and protecting from. He can neither be charitable towards others nor himself. Frustration, aggression, and loneliness are the prices he pays. 3 rules for immunizing yourself against emotional hurts. Number 1, be too big to feel threatened. Many people become hurt terribly by tiny pinpricks, or what we call social slights. Everyone knows someone in the family, office, or circle of friends who is so thin-skinned and sensitive that others must be continually on guard, least offense, and be taken at some innocent word or act. It is a well-known psychological fact that people who become offended the easiest have the lowest self-esteem. We are hurt by those things we conceive of as threats to our ego or self-esteem. Fancied emotional thrusts which go by unnoticed by the person with wholesome self-esteem slice these people up terribly. Even the real digs and cuts which inflict a terrible injury to the ego of the person with low self-esteem do not make a dent in the ego of the person who thinks well of himself. It is the person who feels undeserving, doubts his own capabilities, and has a poor opinion of himself who becomes jealous at the drop of a hat. It is the person who secretly doubts his own worth and who feels insecure within himself, who sees threats to his ego where there are none, that exaggerates and overestimates the potential damage from real threats. We all need a certain amount of emotional toughness and ego security to protect us from real and fancied ego threats. It wouldn't be wise for our physical body to be covered completely with a hard callus or a shell like a turtle's. We would be denied the pleasure of all sensual feeling. But our body does have a layer of outer skin, the epidermis, for the purpose of protecting us from invasion of bacteria, small bumps and bruises, and small pinpricks. The epidermis is thick enough and tough enough to offer protection against small wounds, but not so thick and hard that it interferes with all feeling. Many people have no epidermis to their ego. They have only one thin, sensitive inner skin. They need to become thicker skinned, emotionally tougher, so that they will simply ignore petty cuts and minor ego threats. Also, they need to build up their self-esteem, get a better and more adequate self-image of themselves so that they will not feel threatened by every chance remark or innocent act. A big, strong man does not feel threatened by a small danger. A little man does. In the same way, a healthy, strong ego with plenty of self-esteem does not feel itself threatened by every innocent remark. Healthy self-images do not bruise easily. If the person who feels his self-worth is threatened by a slightly remark, has a small, weak ego and a small amount of self-esteem, he is self-centered, self-concerned, hard to get along with, and what we call egotistic. But we do not cure a sick or weak ego by beating it down, undermining it, or making it even weaker through self-abnegation, or trying to become selfless. Self-esteem is necessary to the spirit as food is to the body. To cure for self-centeredness, self-concern, egotism, and all the ills that go with it, is to the development of a healthy, strong ego by building up self-esteem. When a person has adequate self-esteem, little slights offer no threats at all. They are simply passed over and ignored. Even deeper emotional wounds are likely to heal faster and cleaner, with no festering sores to poison life and spoil happiness. Alright, I'm going to pause here today. And I absolutely love this first rule here. To be big, to be too big to feel threatened. But I want to know, how are you ladies feeling about today's read so far?
Peace, family. Great to be here with y'all today. I absolutely love it. And I also love the alignment because it seems like every time we read a chapter, something is already percolating in my real life that is related to what we're reading.
Please
Um,
share.
yeah, it's making me think about, y'all remember the book from childhood? Well, I'm saying childhood. I know we all may be different ages, but in my childhood, there was a book called Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, or something like that.
Yes. I
All right.
remember you telling us about this book.
Yes. So the whole time listening to this first part of the chapter, I'm thinking, wow, this reminds me of young Alexander and how he had such a thin skin when it came to small things happening. And it all starts with him getting out of bed and there being gum in his hair. And he says he can tell it's going to be a really bad day because of that. And then everything starts to spiral downward. And so I'm just thinking, like, I'm thinking about, as you're reading the chapter, what kind of person grows up to have this kind of mentality? And it could be a child like Alexander who embodied his mentality, right? But it's no one's fault. It just is about awareness every single time. The reason why Alexander had that mentality is because that's where his conditioning came from. So when he talked about, people are not born like this, it's something that we have to grow into. We have to learn how to embody. And I believe that that's the entire, not, I ain't going to say the entire, because I know there's more than one reason that we came to be human, but that's one of the aspects of what it means to be human, to grow through those human experiences, to grow your emotional capacity.
Absolutely. I 100% concur. Because if you think about it, there's this journey from when you're a child that experience you experience a wide range of emotions, but depending on how you learn about emotions, right? Usually it's either happiness or sadness. And then maybe as you get older, now you start incorporating anger. And then maybe as you get older, then you incorporate boredom. And then you incorporate all these different ranges of emotions, the older you get. And depending on how brave you are, really will depend on the range of emotion you can truly experience as an adult. Because most times those people who get stuck in those negative emotions because they're really sensitive, or they don't develop a high self-esteem, and their self-esteem is withered down at a very young age, then they're usually stuck in that lower end of the spectrum, the lower range of the spectrum, always being hurt, always needing to protect yourself, always feeling like someone's out to get you. This whole description of egotism that and self-centeredness that the author gave. So it's very, very interesting, the way he described these feelings. How about you, Dominique? How did you feel about today's read?
Yes, I was actually just thinking about my emotions and stuff as we were reading. I'm like, yes, I had to go through it as well. Like you said, like, you go through it and then you figure it all out on what you don't want and what you do want. And, you get aware of your emotions as well. So that's what I've been like, going through as well. And it's like, I liked it. I really did, learned a lot from this chapter. It's like, yes, like you be on point with it.
Thank you for sharing. In this last part too, it says the first rule for immunizing yourself against emotional hurts. I immediately thought of this TED Talk I watched once, and it was by Brene Brown. She is an author and a researcher, and she wrote the book dang, I can't remember. I think it's something of How to Be Great, or it's something of that sort, right? And basically the whole book is about, I think, grief. And what she explains and the conclusion she builds is that you cannot emotionally numb. Like, you cannot selectively numb, because our body is all just one body. Our spirit is all one spirit. So you can't just say, you know what, I don't want to feel sadness anymore, I don't want to feel pain anymore. You just block it off completely. If as soon as you decide to block one emotion, you block them all. And if you choose to no longer feel pain, you can no longer feel happiness, or all the other experiences of the emotional range that we have as humans. And yeah, Brene Brown, she's a great speaker and author. I actually read the book after I had watched that TED Talk. And just thinking about that concept of you cannot emotionally numb, I feel like we all go through that, like, learning experience, through binge watching on TV, or binging out on food, or alcohol and other substances, or maybe binging out on gossip and drama. A lot of the times we want to keep ourselves distracted from pain and from grief and from all these feelings of insecurity that we deal with through the stages of life. But as soon as we try to block off those painful feelings, we can no longer feel the good ones. And as soon as you realize you're greater than any circumstances that you're put into, and you are more powerful than any experience that may cause you pain or hurt, you will always heal. And your healing can be as fast or as slow as you make it. And as soon as you recognize that you cannot selectively decide, I'm not going to feel pain anymore, I'm only going to choose happiness, yes, you can live that way. But to block everything off completely is not a life to live. I feel like that's when we get even more egotism, and these emotional scars really form in our lives. And we're always so focused on the fact that we don't want to get hurt again, that we continue to put ourselves in hurtful circumstances. So, anything else you ladies want to share today?
I love that, Alyssa. Thank you for sharing that. That's so true and so important, because when we experience those feelings of self-doubt, insecurity, for example, sadness, it really is also an opportunity to grow through that so that we can become more secure and relieve self-doubt. And it's not saying that we're not ever going to feel insecurity again, or we're not ever going to experience self-doubt again once we grow through it on one level, for example. But we acquire the tools, the emotional toolkit that allows us to be able to flow through it with greater ease if it ever comes back around again, or when it comes back around again. So thank you for sharing it. And I just always appreciate having these conversations with you ladies.
Likewise. Go ahead, Dominique.
Yes, I feel the same way. It's like y'all be taking the words out of my mouth and be saying things that I need to hear. Like, yes, I just feel very thankful as well, and just blessed to be here with you ladies, and to, hear you guys speak and, teach me some things as well.
Of course, and I'm glad that we get to share this time together as well. And I'm grateful to even have people to share it with. So I'm going to close out today's session. I hope everyone also learned something, or just maybe you just think a little bit more about the way that you choose to experience life, because at the end of the day, you have free will, right? Life is a choice, and every single second you make a decision of what kind of experience do I want to have right now. Do I want to enjoy this life, or do I want to worry about all the potential pain that I could experience? And when you shift your focus and attention to a life that is desirable, a goal that is greater than the mundane things of life, those situations that could potentially, cause you pain if you're someone who is sensitive, if you're someone who is more receptive to negative experiences, then your life will really be able to take off and you'll really be able to accomplish much more, just because you have your focus set towards something that you are so passionate about that no kind of circumstance, person, emotional upset can take your attention away from what you want to accomplish. And I think that's really the essence of this book, of your self-image. Is like, who do you see yourself becoming, and who is this image? What is this image that you're so passionate about that it must happen? Like, it's such a important desire that it's comparable to air. Like, if I don't breathe right now, I will die without air. Like, what is that goal? What is that thing that you need? That self-image. How do you see yourself? And once you have that image set in your mind, it's a magical ride where life can take you. And Joy said, the power of the mastermind allows us to all learn and grow from each other. Amen. Thank you for letting us learning and growing. Do you ladies have any last comments?
Oh, I just was thinking about this. I was putting it in the chat, but real quick, this chapter also, the beginning of this chapter just reminded me of the song Scar Tissue by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And if you never have heard that song, check it out and read the lyrics as you're listening to it, because it's just really talking about emotional pain and the analogy of scar tissue.
I will have to check that one out, honestly. But thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Bless you all, and we'll see each other at the next reading. Bye.